How's it going, YouTube? Commencing today with another video, and today, guys, the bring to you is going to be the side guide. I really do hope this helps. It's going to be showing you a couple different examples of what you can side versus different matchups, and then we'll talk a little bit more about why I side the things that I side, and then I'll show you an ideal siding lineup for right now. But definitely go ahead and check my sponsors over on Gem, Cloud, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, RW, MainPhaze, and Grimoire down below in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're on our way to 30,000. I appreciate it so much. Thank you all for the support. It's been absolutely astounding. So thank you all so much. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it moving. Let's hit our goal. So without further ado, let's hop right into the content. The first one after today is going to be Yummy. So this deck is definitely something that has been popping up a lot lately, but there's a lot of cards that counter this, like a lot. You definitely can ulti Slayer, send them along. I like DDG. DDG is one of my favorite cards this format. I think this card's absolutely fantastic because, you know, shifter-esque effect, of course, it's going to be broken. A lot of these decks have a really hard time recurring the resources, and a deck like Yummy really relies on the grave. So it's very awkward for this deck to try to play. Another thing that's not in here that I want to add is going to be Gravekeeper's Inscription. If you activate it and say no summoning from the graveyard, this deck is going to struggle, because that lasts for 2 turns. So you get to your opponent's turn and they're like, oh, so what do we do, right? That's really awkward. So something to keep in mind. I think Inscription is like a premium card right now, but definitely very good in Yummy. Super Poly, it's okay, it's not bad. It's pretty good to get rid of like one of their synchros and then like Herald the Arclight as well. So there's definitely a few different things that you can do with that. Super Poly is going to be kind of mid, but it's still not like the worst. I really like Dark Ruler and Evenly this format. Those 2 cards in most matchups right now are very, very strong, especially Evenly. I think that's a card that you should be on. I think you should be siding 3. We'll talk about decks that can't run that later, but Evenly should be a card that you're playing. You should be siding Cosmic for this deck. If you were going first, side Cosmic for Yummy. You set Cosmic, and then you banish Minion, and all of a sudden this deck can't play. Minion is so important for this deck because that's how they get their attack boost. So until people start really realizing that they need the other minion and have the second in their side deck, it's going to be rough. It's going to be very rough. So that's something that if you have the Cosmic, it's going to be hard for them to play if they don't have the second one, because their monsters just can't get big enough. Protoss Call Light. Yeah, I don't really know why we're not seeing a whole lot of that right now. Protoss Call Light is insane versus this. You just do that and it's an auto dub. Most decks have a light as well that they can go ahead and just like pop with Protoss, so not necessarily the biggest issue, and it's something that's going to be really solid. Another one is Zombie World. This is really solid. It works the same as like Clockwork Knight if you're playing Canine Crystron, that you can activate into Yummy and all of a sudden they can't play the game. If you're on Canine Crystron, you should already have in your personal sideboard a Clockwork Knight, a Regulus, and maybe Foolish Burial Goods if you really want it. You don't need it, but it is kind of nice to have, especially if you're playing like Black Goat as well. So it kind of like doubles up as a breaker because you can just go ahead and send Goat, then call whatever you need to call. Then the last 2 here being Pankratops and Fenrir. These 2 cards are fantastic in this matchup. You're able to just bait so much, right? Like summon a monster, call battle. Are you going to respond to me? No? Okay, I'm running over Herald, right? And then I'm going to deal with something else too. So I think both these cards are premium. I think they're pretty interchangeable right now. I think Pankratops is really solid. I really like Fenrir, but I know that a lot of people will still really enjoy Pankratops as well, so I'm kind of back and forth on the 2, but I think they're both pretty solid right now. Draco Tail is another one here that's going to be really popular. This deck is catching like gasoline on fire right now. The deck is really popular. It's very cheap. It's going up right now though. This is the time, if you want to pick this deck up, to pick it up now. I'm telling you, the product's going to run out soon. The prices are going to go way up. Draco Tail's already going up. And Famitas were like $6. Now they're like 13. So that's something where it's like, you should be trying to get these cards. The Yummy cards eventually will go up. They just came out, right? So they're not going to be reprinted anytime soon. And then once we see a ban list, and again, once product is like dwindled down, and that's going to be one of the better decks, the cards are just going to go up. So right now is the time. The monsters sent as fusion material that get the effect to set a card have to go to grave. So if you had them under DDG, it's going to be real rough. It's going to be real rough. So something that you really want to think about here. I like Droll against the deck. It's definitely a take because people will play like Shaddoll Beast. They're playing Hedgehog. The deck has Katu as well. and Lucius, and there's definitely a few searches in there and a few like outlier searches that can help as well. So that's someone to really keep in mind that's going to be pretty popular right now. So Droll has some application to this, which I think is really cool. I like Solemn Warning for this matchup. I think this is a card that you will be playing in your side deck at 3 if Draco Tail really does become super, super popular, just because it hits both of the spell cards, and I think that's very important. Solemn Warning is very strong. Barrier. Zombie World, because a lot of them really want to be the spellcaster or the zombie type for their effects that they're trying to do, unless they're just choosing from the hand, which, I mean, if they are, they are, but if they're not, then it's going to be kind of rough. And they have ways to be, like, okay around Zombie World, but I think that it's still pretty okay to run against it. Super Poly, Secretarian Dragon, of course. That card's fantastic against this matchup. I really like Fenrir, because if you're expecting your opponent to be playing turn 0, there's also going to be a lot of Draco Tail Canine builds, and even just the Draco Tail cards themselves with, like, Femina, right? You can have Fenrir to go ahead and try to banish the fusion, and then you have Lightning Storm and Duster to go ahead and just proc everything if you can. A lot of times these will be met with Flame, but if that's your card to be able to bait that and then go ahead like a Droplet or a Talent, right, then you don't have to worry about that card being in the back row anymore. So that's something to really think about too. K9 Christian, be careful when you go to Lancia this deck, because if they have a Zuna sitting in hand and you haven't procced anything yet, if you go onto my Twitter, or I think it's also my YouTube community tab, I got Lancia'd in game 3 of a match. I put up like 4 or 5 interruptions on a board with follow-up through Lancia on K9 Christian. So sometimes it's not going to be the best thing to drop. I think that K9 Maliss could be very strong just for that same reason alone. Is that if you Lancia them, not only do they have like their backup in Wizard, but if they're also on like the K9 cards, they can just play, right? Like there's just other things that they can do. So there's definitely something that you got to be careful about, because Lancia going into this matchup is hypothetically very good. But if they have access to K9 cards, it gets rough to try to hand trap your opponent unless you have like multiple, right? Ulti Slayer with Mirror Logic is very good because you can go ahead and just like return the Infinity. You got to be careful with what you're returning. And if they're on the LC Release Restraint or if they're on X Liberation, because they can go ahead and tag out, right? So something that you got to be really careful about here. But you still get to go ahead and send down the aggregator, which is really important as well. Book of Eclipse, a lot of things on the board are not going to be link monsters, so this does hit quite a lot. Again, with DDG, it's still going to be a card that's absolutely phenomenal in this matchup. Dark Ruler evenly, great cards. Mega Fleet, if you haven't watched my short, then you should. Being able to just stare at your opponent and be like, cool, MainPhaze, and just like contact their board for a Mega Fleet with their EMZ monster and their Infinity without doing anything, it's kind of crazy. And you don't have to control either of the monsters. You can just look at your opponent's board and be like, that's an Infinity and that's an EMZ monster. Mega Fleet, right? So, pretty good, pretty good. Droll is a card that's realistically just being mained, so I don't have it here, but I do have Shared Ride and Mistaken Arrest for Kin and VS. I do think both these are fantastic cards, either or, especially if you're playing Rock. I think the only way I'd ever play Shared Ride is if I was on Rock. And that's a card that I think is really solid still, because a lot of people are putting their boards as like way too wide, right? They're just playing in a Rock because they're like, oh, it's not that popular. It's getting to be popular again, because again, we all know that once it's bad, it's good, and once it's good, it's bad, and vice versa. It's a never-ending conundrum, right? And so Rock will always be present in the game for that reason alone. The next one up here is going to be MitsuRy. This deck is definitely going to be something that you have to be worried about right now. This deck is still very strong in the format. Things like Mistaken Arrest, Droll, you need these cards right now. They're still going to be very important. Stop cutting these. You will miss them in tournament. Deck Lockdown. This card, if you activate it at the end of your combo and just throw it on the board, a lot of times they can't play the game either. The card is absolutely fantastic. Different Dimension Ground. This card is very solid too. The Mitsu cards do activate in the Banish Zone, but you can't summon things like X Ryzeal, right? You can't go ahead and just like summon your ice by sending something to the graveyard. There's a lot of crazy downsides for your opponent. Droplet's really good into Detonator or into Mirakumo if you need it. I think this is the most flexible card right now. Of course, it's very bad into a few matchups right now, including Draco Tail and the Yummy matchup. But These are all very important going into this matchup. I really do like Evenly a lot this format. That's something that I keep saying, but I've been hitting every single deck consistently for like 4 to 6 cards when I use this. So that's something to keep in mind because the card is very effective right now. Maliss, if you go ahead and super poly their board, you can go for the Earth Golem. I think this card's very good, especially if they're going second and they're trying to like crack into your board, and then you super poly them in some of the Earth Golem. Card's very solid and also says you can't take more damage, so at that point you kind of just have like a free turn, right? You don't have to commit to the board too hard once you super poly them, because at that point you're just like, you can't die, right? So very strong. Evenly, of course you had to bait the Echo Talker first, but the card's still very solid. Lightning Storm Duster, be able to play through all the back row immediately. Meows having Phantasme, Lancia, Chaos Hunter. I really like cards like Shaddoll Fusion in this matchup. I think that being able to just interrupt your opponent in multiple ways right off the rip, because this card has to get ate by the Echo Talker, or else you're sending things like Genius to the grave and summoning Op Cologne, and it's just a lot to deal with. That's why we're seeing this card have so much success in Gem Knight right now. Bell is really cracked in this matchup because you get rid of the field spell. You deny the Splash Mage, you know, there's just so many applications for this card in this matchup that are so prominent, but these are all very solid into that matchup, and it makes it really hard for them to play, and it's something that you really want to keep in mind that Maliss is also still a deck of the same as MitsuRy, because yes, we're seeing a lot of the new decks, but these decks are still kicking, they're still doing other things right now, so make sure that you're prepared going into your events. These are all cards that I could realistically see in the main deck right now. Droplet, Fenrir, Ghost Ogre, Dark Ruler, Book of Eclipse. I've been seeing Ghost Ogre at 2, and it's very much so prominent right now where you could be seeing it at 3 in the main deck. This card is absolutely phenomenal right now. The amount of application that Ogre has in the format currently is fantastic. One of my favorite being specifically Minion. And it's really nice when your opponent goes, yeah, I'm going to summon one of the cats that isn't the Cupsy, go link one effect, and you Ogre. That's tough. Duo Drive, that's tough, right? Like, there's just so many situations where Ogre just does a lot. So, definitely something to keep in mind. Book of Eclipse, I think that has a really good application. Dark Ruler, I think, is just an overall very solid pick. If you want to main anything at the moment that's going to be pretty high impact when you need it, it's definitely going to be Dark Ruler. Your side choices are going to be very much so varied by what deck you're playing. You can't exactly play evenly in Orchest or Maliss, because if your opponent's already siding Lancia, if they drop Lancia on you, it's going to feel real bad, right? So play cards that don't conflict with your already big problems in the deck. Ideally for me, I think this is one of the best lineups that I have at the moment. 3 Lancia, 3 Droll, 3 Dark Ruler, 3 Evenly, and then 2 Thrust and a D-Ground. I think this has been absolutely phenomenal in my games so far. I've been playing so much DB rated, it's actually insane. And, you know, these cards alone have been phenomenal in every matchup that I've played. And I think that right now, this is forever changing. So again, just at the moment, this is what I'm using. But right now, these all feel insanely good. So something to really keep in mind when you're looking more toward your ideal side lineups for the format. Definitely go ahead and check out my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, or Instagram. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so we can hit our goal at 30,000. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.